Hi, and welcome to In the Beginning. So we're going to get this whole semester started here. Um, we're going to start with this lecture, and then you will have a second one. It is called Research Methods. So this is this week. Where did sociology come from? How did it start? Who were the main people that founded it and made it what it is today? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I enjoyed reading about each of you, made some notes so I can kind of keep up with you guys. So welcome to the class. I look forward to this semester. So thank you for completing that icebreaker. And it was good, like I said, it was good to read about each one of you. All right, so we're going to get started. And so in the beginning, like I said, where did sociology come from? And so Auguste Comte, this is a name that you need to know in the fact that he is the founding father of sociology. He doesn't really have any disciplines. He didn't really do a whole lot more, but he was born during the Industrial Revolution or the French Revolution, and he saw a lot of war going on, crime, poverty, and he really wanted to figure out what was causing it. And so he kind of started the idea of sociology. He made it a recognizable discipline. Psychology was already around. You had Sigmund Freud, big name. But sociology, he really wanted to see if what was happening in society played a part in the interactions of people in society. So Auguste Comte, and again, the biggest thing you need to know is he is the founding father of sociology. That will be on several tests. I ask that quite often. He needs to have credit where credit is due. Then came along Emile Durkheim. So let me explain this. So you have a lot of sociologists throughout, 100, 200 years, 100 years since the 1800s. And so sociologists, you have sociologists tend to have their own kind of go with a certain area of expertise. Uh, my concentration is in criminology, crime and deviance, and also religious studies. So you will find that sociologists in every chapter, in every topic that we're going to talk about this semester, sociologists, you have sociologists who just focus on, and their expertise is on culture, religious studies, race and relationships, marriage and family. Sociologists also have their specific theory that they tend to follow. And we're going to talk more about that near the end of the lecture. You're going to hear the two terms theory and perspective. I usually call these the big three. And I use that word interchangeable. You will hear me either say sociological perspective or what theory. It's the same thing. And it's a way of looking at the world and behaviors. It's kind of a view. Perspective is a view on something. And so one of the things we're going to talk about theories every week and kind of apply each one to the topics being discussed. And so I'm going to introduce you to some of the big names of sociologists early on and up through 1950s and 60s. And I will talk about, kind of what their perspective is. Where do they fall? And each of you will kind of find your own way in a perspective through this class. I can usually tell by your writings where you would fall on your perspective. You might not realize it, but near the end of the semester, you should. So Emile Durkheim is a huge name. You're going to hear him pretty much every week. He worked hard to make sociology a scholarly discipline. Was not very accepted in the 1900s after Auguste Comte kind of started it. But look at it now. I mean, there's a lot of classes, but Introduction to Sociology is almost an elective or goes along with almost any and every major. It's one of the ones that you can choose. Now, Emil Durkheim has done a lot of things for this social science. His most important work was research and a book on suicide. He was one of the first sociologists to use data to kind of look at suicide and then report it in what's called a quantitative form. This is a number form. We'll talk more about this next week in research methods. But he was very big on this. He kind of started looking at why was the suicide rate increasing? What was going on in society? And then he started taking data. He looked at, all right, so 15 people committed suicide here during this period of time, and then looking at what was going on. So know Emil Durkheim, you're going to get to know him very well. And again, his perspective is functionalism. Then we have Karl Marx. He's another big name you're going to hear every week. Karl Marx, now the interesting thing is he was a theorist and a political activist. He was not really a sociologist, but he gave us the conflict theory perspective in sociology. He wrote the Communist Manifesto. He was all about socialism. Socialism is where everybody's equal. And his conflict theory, really, his whole idea was you have people who have power, you have people who don't have power. The people who have power control those that don't. The ones that don't have power want to overthrow and gain power. And again, this will be a lot more, it's going to be more understandable as we go along. This is just kind of introducing these guys. Very concerned about inequalities, especially in the economics and workplace. So Karl Marx is a name you need to know. Max Weber, German, he is also from the conflict theory perspective. His ideas influenced social theory and social research, a lot more into conflict theory, kind of doing a lot more research with data. He really thought that statistics, these were facts and knowledge to prove the point. So he is one of three founding fathers of sociology. You have August Comte, and then you have Emil Durkheim, and you have Max Weber. He also took a lot of what Karl Marx did, and he kind of brought it into sociology. So that is another big name that you're going to hear. Another perspective, and this is symbolic interactionalism, is with Herbert Mead. Symbolic interactionalism, again, we'll go over the theories here in a minute, but think symbols. And so Herbert Mead really was looking at society, and, his big thing was that the mind and self are developed from social process. We begin to think of who we are because of the way people see us and interact with us, is kind of his basis. He did a lot of work on social behaviorism, which is kind of the opposite of psychological behaviorism. Again, I kind of mentioned psychology's the inside, how we behave based on our brain. Sociology is our interactions with others. And so Herbert Mead really started to bring this to life, and looking at gestures, symbols. And so Herbert Mead is another one you'll hear, not every week, but very often. Charles Cooley is one that you will probably hear almost every week. Charles Cooley also falls under symbolic interactionalism. He was a founding member of the American Sociological Association. He preferred an empirical observational approach. That will be in the next lecture for the second part of the week, of what is empirical and observational approach. The only practical method is to study the actual situation closely and kindly with other people involved. The way to understand is to kind of get in there and observe, and that's how you're going to know the situation. That's how you're going to know better of why people interact and behave the way they do. So Charles Cooley. And then we have C. Wright Mills. C. Wright Mills wrote a book, Power of Elite. He coined the term sociological imagination. Now, he was in the mid-1900s. He really wanted to look at power structures and then how sociologists should study social problems. You're going to hear the sociological imagination is you have to pull away from the situation and thinking from it from an alternative point of view. So, for example, if I put up a picture of a painting, I don't know if you guys are familiar with modern art. Modern art, the artist is trying to convey something, but people can come up and see different things from it. Even if you looked at Van Gogh's Starry Night, if you didn't really know anything about the painting and you just walked up to it, somebody might say it's stars or the dark, or you might have just a different opinion or a view of it. And that's really the sociological imagination. And that's the basis of sociology. Mills recommended avoiding being strict about one methodology or theory. What he's trying to say is, for good sociologists, you have to have an open mind. You have to be objective. Kind of put your values and beliefs away, and don't fall into. You have some sociologists who like to do all the research, and they're all about surveys and getting information from that. And C. Wright Mills is saying, well, that may not always work, and you have to be willing to open up your mind. And that's where we're coming into sociology. I want you to open your mind. I want you to come from different perspectives and see the different topics in a whole new way. And that's the sociological imagination. All right, so let me introduce you to the big three. They're called sociological paradigms or theories or perspectives. You will hear me mostly use theory and perspectives. And there's three that sociologists can come from that point of view. You have the functionalist, the structural functionalist perspective, the conflict theory, and the symbolic interactionalist. Again, the paradigm, the perspective is a broad view or lens that give us the opportunity to describe society. It also helps us build hypotheses and theories. So let's get started. Now, I will tell you there's going to be a cheat sheet under student resources. I will put it in this section, this week's section in Moodle. I will also put it up at the top where it's your course schedule and your course syllabus is. And you can refer back to it. So structural functionalism, structural. This is macro, means large. It explains society as a large system. As you're going to learn over the next couple of weeks, some of our behavior is shaped by norms, values, rules. That comes a lot about in culture and socialization. These words may be, kind of foreign to you, but over the next week or two, you're really going to come into this term and understand it. The functional perspective is based largely on the works of Durkheim, Emil Durkheim. And structural functionalists look at society as the human body. There's all sorts of different parts, and you have to have all those parts to be able for the body to function um, in the best way. Now, some may not be functional; they might be dysfunctional. Um, your left arm may not work or may not be there. Now, does society completely fall apart? Does the body completely fall apart? No. Um, but we just need, the different organs. We need the different roles. We need all different parts. And so that's structural functionalism. So, and another example is there's a lot of different social classes in our society, and we will talk about this in when we get to the section on social stratification and social class. We have people who live in poverty, we have people who live wealthy lives, and we have people who live in the middle. Now, let's be honest. Those that live near poverty, it stinks. They don't have a fancy car, they don't have a fancy house. Um, it's not ideal all the time. You look around and go, man, I wish I could afford the Apple Watch or the Apple 12. But not everybody's equal in finances and social class. And so functionalism would say we have to have all the different classes um, for society to be stable. And I'll give you uh, more rationales and reasons when we get to that section. But this is just kind of giving you an example. Some key words to know that you're coming from this perspective is stability, parts, organisms, function, purpose. As we talk about discussions, you will know that that's coming from functionalism. They look at the reasons. What good does it do for our society? What good does having people in poverty, middle class, and upper class do for our society? And so that's functionalism. And as we go through every topic after this week, each topic I'm going to introduce the big three perspectives and kind of give you examples so that you will have a much better understanding. This is going to be used in a lot of your discussion posts, and then in two of your major papers. Functionalism and all of the theories look at, we have big structures in our society. This is the area, these are where we get so much of our socialization, our values, our beliefs. Government, education. Government provides laws, rules, stability. Education, socializing, learning, your social placement. Family, that should be raising children. Creating new members of society, procreation. Teaching values, traditions. Think about your home. What all do you get out of living in your family, in your home? Religion is another big structure. It's an organization, it's morals, community. And then media provides what is the norm and acceptable of society at the time. Also, you're going to find all of these structures in every society throughout the world, not just the US, not just in North Carolina. These big structures and institutions are in every society throughout the world. You're going to find them all over. All right, so the second big three of perspectives is what's called conflict theory. Now, conflict theory, this is Karl Marx kind of started it with his Communism Manifesto, looking at inequalities, especially after the Industrial Revolution. Again, topics that we will talk about more in depth. And you have the haves and the have-nots. In every society, you have those people who have power, the money, the control, and those that do not have power. Um, and it looks at status in society. Where do people fit in? Again, those in power want to hold on to it, and those not in power want to obtain that. I talked a little bit about this when I introduced Karl Marx. Again, he's not a sociologist, but any of the questions, if you read sociologists and talking about theories, you will probably see Karl Marx as an answer, and he goes with conflict theory. So this is a name that you really need to know. George Simmel is another one that I didn't talk about, and then Max Weber, I mentioned him in the beginning. They are big advocates for conflict theory. So that was kind of their area. That's their perspective that they go by, their theories, that they look at all the interactions in the world around them, in the societies and the behaviors. Marx in conflict theory says that everyone in society should earn the same money, have the same kind of house, etc., no matter what kind of job they have or who they are. Karl Marx was all about socialism. Everybody is equal. And then we have symbolic interactionalism. So the other thing I want to say is conflict theory and functionalism are both macro. They look at society at large, all the big institutions on a larger level. Whereas symbolic interactionalism is more micro, it's smaller. It looks at the world and community around us at a smaller level. So, for example, and this is just really loosely used, but Boonville, if you're looking at Boonville in that area, instead of looking at North Carolina or looking at the South, instead of looking at all of the U.S. Symbolic interactionists explain or describe people's interactions based on meaning and definitions. If we go back to our Herbert Mead, he talks about gestures, he talks about meanings. That's how we really interact and understand. For example, Jordan shoes are something you wear on your feet. So they're shoes, but they're also, what are some other meanings? We can see it as a person that's wealthy, especially if you have the limited edition $300, $400, $500 shoes. Or they're trying to stand out, or they might be an athlete. And so these shoes can have many different meanings in our society. Slang words also have different meanings in different cultures, society, and over time periods. The 80s, we came up with some crazy words, and I'm not going to lie, you guys have some crazy words during your generation too. But bougie. If you had said bougie back in the 80s, nobody would have understood. And some of you may not even know what that means. That was kind of short-lived. Bougie. Or cool. That's kind of, but that was like way back in the 50s, that kind of came out. But it comes across over different time periods. It can change. All right, so that was a brief overview of the sociologists, the big ones, and then the theories. Now, again, I'm going to put up a cheat sheet, and you are also going to hear this. So don't go, oh my gosh, I need to know this right now. You're going to hear me explain the perspectives in every topic and kind of apply it. So once we get into culture, which is next week, you'll start to see how it fits in better in each perspective. So your assignment this week is I want you to write a 2-page essay about yourself. Who are you? It needs to be at least 2 pages long. I want to know, and you're going to use this as we're coming into culture. There's a reason for this, but I want to know your values, your beliefs, coming from what you know from that, what that word means. What are your roles in your life? My roles, I have many roles as a mom, a daughter, a caregiver, a teacher or an instructor, a friend, um, employee. There's so many roles. I want you to look at roles. What roles do you play in life? Where are your responsibilities? Um, have you lived anywhere else? Is this the only place that you've lived? Have you experienced anything else? Have you traveled outside of North Carolina and visited? So this is the essay that I want you to write. This one does not follow the other 2 writing assignments. It just needs to be at least 2 pages and really go into detail. Okay, so this is that first part of the lecture in the beginning. The next part of the lecture is research methods, and that will be up Monday. So welcome to the class. I look forward to interacting with all of you through your writing assignments, emails if you need me, and your writing assignments, discussion posts too. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.